With every second that ticks by,
The future is running out.
Welcome to What the Flick, everybody. There was a George Clooney movie. I can't believe I didn't see it. Like America. I love George Clooney. Tomorrowland.
He's old in this.
Yeah, Tomorrowland, Disney live action. How'd they do? Oh, but What the Flick. I haven't been here in a while.
Our studio is new
Matt
and sunny, too.
Christy and Alonzo and Ben, it is good to be back and sitting here with my friends.
And a new shiny studio.
Yeah.
Tomorrowland is based on a giant section of Disneyland where you have Star Tours and Space Mountain and that rocket thingy that goes around and around. You wait for a half an hour to get into it, and it's just boring. George Clooney and Britt Robertson end up in Tomorrowland because they have these magical pins that they touch, and it goes and it sends them to Tomorrowland, and nefarious shit goes down there. Take a look.
That's not mine.
What's not yours?
The pen. I've never.
what if there was a place,
Dad, I just need you to look at this. Does it look weird?
a secret place, where nothing was impossible?
You're not seeing this?
Casey, stop it! Go away! Did you see the dog?
I want you to take me there.
Take you where?
What you saw was a place where the best and the brightest people in the world came together to actually change it.
We've been looking for someone like you for a very long time.
Why? Did something happen over there? Something bad?
They followed you here?
Who?
Come on! Get in!
How is this a good idea? All the people, why me?
He thinks you can fix the future.
Hang on!
That, gotta be honest, that did not, your description did not get me super excited.
This movie is such a mess.
It's frustrating because it's Brad Bird, and you're thinking, okay, great, you know, it's the Ghost Protocol, Incredibles, Iron Giant guy, you know. Ratatouille, right? I was forgetting Ratatouille. And it's, you know, it's certainly not lacking in ideas. There's a lot of them. It's just that it doesn't really see any of them through. And the more you think about it, the less sense any of this makes. Like, the movie is about how somewhere we as a population turned away from imagination and dreaming of a better future. I mean, like, you know, when you're a kid in the 70s, you still believed there were going to be like colonies on the moon and at the bottom of the ocean. And now it's all, you know, how
Now
long.
that we've been to the moon, it's like, oh, fuck that.
Yeah, well, no, this was after we were there.
Turns out it's just Phoenix and a bunch of towns around it.
Yeah, now it's all doomsday clock and da-da-da. And so there's a point to be made there. Like, you know, we stopped believing in a great future. We just think we're all doomed now. But the movie's suggestion for why that happened is never really very well explained. It completely leaves out the fact that, oh, you know, oil companies spend all their time making sure that, like, all the great future stuff that might give us, oh, you know, solar energy and wind power are being stomped on whenever possible. So there's no context for any of this. So it just kind of winds up being this weird Atlas Shrugged light where all the smart people need to go off to the mystical city and fix things for the rest of us goons.
Just like, what is at stake here? I'm not sure that's ever actually really clear. Like, I like this movie.
Well, there's a literal ticking clock.
I like this movie a lot until they go to Tomorrowland. Like, when it's all the stuff where you're establishing George Clooney's storyline and Britt Robertson's storyline and how they intertwine with each other and their banter and setting up this whole world is kind of fun. Once they get to Tomorrowland, it's just this mess of like visual effects and various things coming at them, and it doesn't feel very cohesive to me.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about this movie, as we all kind of do. I think that it tries to do some interesting things, and you know, it's hard to fault them for at least being ambitious, right? I mean, if nothing else, like, they're swinging for the fences here. Brad Bird is trying to tell a story that's a lot different, and fundamentally is a really philosophical story here. I feel like the story he's trying to tell is really like the 2.5 hour version of The Power of Positive Thinking, right? and maybe it's, some writers have talked about it's his commentary on the state of sci-fi and fantasy today. Maybe it's a reaction to, the movies and kind of fantasy and sci-fi that we're getting in a post 9/11 world where there's this kind of dread and fascination with these doomsday scenarios in a way that, and I'm painting in very broad strokes here, but in a way that I think that we hadn't really focused on prior to that. And this movie sets up that, from the very beginning, the young character that George Clooney,
The little boy.
the little boy Frank Walker, and it made me kept thinking of Frank Welker. Like I kept expecting him to do voices of from Ghostbusters and Garfield.
That's random.
Sorry, movie,
That did not occur to me.
animation
The movie
nerd.
opens with there's a great big beautiful tomorrow. So I mean, they're
Right.
laying on layers of
And
Disney
so,
and whatnot.
he's this inventor that creates things just for fun and talks about how, isn't it enough to inspire somebody? And Hugh Laurie's character is like, nah, not really, right? And, then there's this weird Randian thing where it's like, oh yeah, we're going to take all of the smart people and go somewhere else. But, and do this Atlas Shrugged thing. And it starts to make you think, between this and The Incredibles.
The Incredibles is his
exact same
fountainhead.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all right, Brad Bird, what are you
Is that the
doing
creepy
over here?
thing? Sorry, go ahead.
But you get to this point in the movie where, ultimately at the end, it's really like, all right, well, we just got to take down the machine that's causing all the problems. And I feel like he doesn't really deliver on the idea that he sets up, which is you're better off thinking you can do something than thinking you can't do something. And I think that there was a story to be told there, and I feel like they kind of dropped the ball. And it's frustrating.
I like the idea behind this
Right.
movie, just none of it manifests in a way that's effective or interesting or that feels like a legitimate payoff to the stuff that they set up.
Yeah, and then the ending is, I'm not going to say what happens, but it's super pat in a feel-good way. It's super canned and maudlin.
Weirdly enough, the villain played by Hugh Laurie has the speech in the movie that makes the most sense.
Yes.
And you're thinking, wait, I'm rooting against
You're the
you,
bad
but you're
guy.
actually saying things that
Right.
make more sense than everybody else.
And then there's the whole creepy thing with the little girl.
She's a really good actress.
She's really good in this. She's this little British actress whose name escapes me, Raffi Cassidy, I want to
yes.
say is her name. She's a robot in little girl form, and so she's the one who connects George Clooney with
Right.
Britt Robertson. But there's this weird dynamic where when Clooney was a little boy, when Frank was a little boy,
Right.
he fell in love with her.
Right,
And that
she's
feeling
like a
is still
young,
there.
and she's like a 13-year-old Audrey Hepburn, right? Like she
Yes.
kind of carries
bangs
herself
and
almost
all.
that way.
Yeah, she's very petite and very charismatic and very commanding, but as a grown-up, in his 60s, he still pines for this person who clearly is not really a little girl, but looks like one.
Right.
And there's these scenes of tenderness which are very uncomfortable.
Dave pointed out that kids will probably really like this movie because it's always moving forward. It goes from thing to thing to thing. Like Matt Singer said, this movie is maybe best enjoyed as sort of a theme park where you go from ride to ride to ride, that each one is different from each other and they don't necessarily cohere, but each offers its own separate experience. But there's no emotional underpinning to any of that stuff. So I think for little kids, they'll like the forward momentum. They might even sort of enjoy the idea of, oh, we should dream a better tomorrow. And
Yeah.
stuff. But for adults, I think this is going to be an unsatisfying movie because you can see what it's trying to do and where it's going for, and then it just never lands.
Well, the kids
Although
you
I would
brought
say,
liked it.
yeah, I brought 3 kids to this. None of them have really, since the movie, been talking about it that much. And usually I can see the measure of how much they enjoyed a movie by how much they're quoting it and talking about things that happened in the movie. And they haven't really been talking about it, as opposed to, like, Gabe won't shut up about Pitch Perfect 2 since I took him to that.
Okay,
right?
so kids won't like it either then.
Well, the other thing, too, is I would be careful about taking little kids to this movie because
Yeah.
people get off in this.
Well, yeah.
I thought you guys were going to talk about, evidently it's not there then, but there's no sense that this is sort of Disney promoting Disney?
Yeah, a little.
It's a
there
small
is,
world
like,
ride in the middle of
Right.
it.
I mean,
yeah.
it's some of it, like you see some of it shot around the platforms where the Autopia is.
Yeah,
and
it
some
starts
of
at the '64 World's Fair where "It's a Small World" was introduced.
Right.
And like I said, it starts with "There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow," which was from the original Carousel of Progress.
Right, and there's a couple of shots of Space Mountain that you see in the background, and there's these
in a way-
flying trains that look just
But
like
it
a
didn't feel,
monorail.
but it didn't feel over the top.
No, I mean, in a way, it has the same subtext of Saving Mr. Banks, which is shut up and do what Walt says. I think, but frankly, if you want to see a movie that's about taking Walt Disney's dream of the future and making it manifest, see Meet the Robinsons. Aliens. I think it's a
Yeah.
much better movie on the same time.
No, I will say this looks like the Tomorrowland that they originally built, less so than the Tomorrowland that we have now.
It's the 60s idea of the
It's that
future.
60s jet age.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Alonzo and Christy might have missed this, but there was Matt and I had a little Twitter exchange with a person this week who said to Matt and I, he goes, "No offense, Matt and Ben, but I only watch for Christy and Alonzo."
Thank you,
And
whoever you
I
are.
was like, you don't really need to include the no offense. There's no way you can say that without offense. And Matt said something kinder to him.
Right.
And then
I said I'd watch that show too.
Right. And then he scrambled back like he clearly felt bad, but he couldn't help it, and he kept sort of insulting a little more in his attempt not to insult. But I just like every time I hear Matt sort of explain something, I think, like, whatever, I don't know, but like you're a very smart guy.
Yeah, well,
Aw, and you look smart today. You look professorial today.
Ben, you're
they're cuter than
valuable
I am,
to this program.
I'm not smart. But
right, but Alonzo is clearly Fat Beardo 1. I'm at best number 2.
Oh,
I like
that's,
this though.
you're
I like
so
your,
condescending.
you're
He's filling
drinking
it
a whole
out.
beard. I like it. I like it. Yeah.
It's not a Disney ad, but there is a giant ad for Coke in the middle of it.
No, sorry,
it's
I just
Coke.
saw San Andreas. That's all. That's Pepsi.
There's
Yes.
a giant Coke ad in the middle
No,
of
but
this
there's
movie.
Pepsi
There's
ads
a
in
giant
this
Coke ad in the middle
too.
with Mad Men.
Yeah,
Literally.
yeah, because it's like Pepsi presents, like there's Pepsi
Oh,
branding
interesting.
around the World's Fair thing.
But when she's really thirsty, she like downs 2 Cokes in glass
Yeah.
bottles really fast. Anyway, numbers, please.
I give it a 6.8. There were individual moments in this movie that I thought were exciting or thrilling. I love the score by Michael Giacchino, but it's a mess.
5 for me. It's a mess.
Yeah, 6.5. I wanted to like this, and it's hard to fault how positive it feels. Like it's kind of a puppy, right? Like,
But also, but what's our takeaway? I mean, after this whole 2 hours of we need to build a better future, what are we supposed to do now with
think
that?
positive.
Go plant a tree. That's pretty much it. Our average is 6.1. It's at 55% on the tomato meter right now. So, and dropping.
And dropping.
All right. Thanks. Bye.